Getting Simon here, Explosive Action, back for another death metal update. Mixed formats here, 3 CDs, 6 LPs to take a look at. So let's get into it. So I decided to mix formats up this time, 3 CDs, 6 records, because that's just how it rolled. I got some CDs in the post, I got some LPs, and look, let's not be format snobs today. Let's be format agnostic. It's all about the death metals and the gutturals and those detuned riffs. So the first one thing we're going to take a look at is the latest CD from Vanhelgd. This is a Tropos Doctrina, the 6th full length from this Swedish death metal band. Also on Dark Descent Records, excellent label. I picked this up and the next CD from a local distributor. Well, local as in Australian. They're not anywhere near me, but they're up in Queensland, one state upwards. Total War Records, who have been around for a few years now and really do a great service to local metal fans. They import from Dark Descent, MSUO, a whole bunch of other really cool labels, Invictus, and really, really affordable prices. Some of the best prices in the game for us local Aussies. So yeah, big props to Total War. And this new one here from Vanhelgd came from them. It's a band that I don't think get mentioned that often in the modern death metal scene. Certainly not as much as other Swedish or Finnish death metal bands. These guys have been going since 2007 and release pretty much superb album after superb album. Their first two, Cult of Lazarus in 2008 and Church of Death in 2011, were really great examples of what the band could do. But by their third album in 2014, Relics of Sulphur Salvation, great title, that's when they really started to find their sort of signature sound, and aesthetically they found their template, this white border sort of font logo at the top and then a nice picture in the middle. They pretty much kept that theme for the last few albums. A bit of a consistency moving forward there. 2016's Temple of Phobos was the next one, and 2018's Deimos Sanctuarium, which I thought was fantastic, particularly that album. And that's just been showing pretty much for me continual, just gradual improvement for the band, which lends us here in 2024 a Tropos Doctrina. The band's name Vanhelgd literally translates to desecration, so you know you're going to get dark graveyard churning death metal, and it's a perfect moniker for what you get from these guys. Slower to mid-paced, heavy bottom end, very mature songwriting approach. It's a very dark churning riffs akin to some bands more like Denmark and Finland. Really, it's not a band I listen to and go, these guys are Swedish. Like, it doesn't have that up-picking sort of Stockholm sound, a Gothenburg sound really, and like the Stockholm like fast sort of tremolo kind of thing. They don't really have that kind of sound. It's more like your Burial Invocation out of Turkey. More than once when I was listening to this album, I was thinking of it as an older death metal band that only really did a demo and an EP called Ascended. I got some vibes from Ascended listening to that. And what I really like is they have this very emotional connection these guys have, and they do that through their leads. Not going to be the last time I say that in this update either. But there's a band I've talked about before, Jade, and they really hook me with the leads that they do. They tear at you, and I think Vanhelgd are doing very similar things here on this album. I'll flip around, show the back. Black and white. You actually get the band logo here, and then the song titles, which are all in Swedish, so no idea what's going on. The nice Dark Descent logo there as well. Let's flip it back because the cover artwork is prettier. From the old school of Sweden, Vanhelgd approached more that sound, I say, of Gorment, God Macabre, just the darker bands, the more, I suppose, slower bands, mid-paced bands, not the blitzkrieg ones, not the Entombed and Dismember kind of ones, the usual suspects. It's very much the darker ones, the ones off to the side a little bit. There's definitely riffs that do sound like the descendants of like the Red in the Sky is Ours. Can't deny that. But really, it's more that darker sound from Finland. Like the first Sentenced album is a good parallel, I think, for some of the material you get from Vanhelgd. Just darkness is the key with these guys. Absolutely. Let's take the cover out so you can look at the inside. And all lyrics, I mean, they could all be typos. I would not have a clue. It's all in the Swedish. Very helpful to me, but it will be helpful to some of you out there. There's the CD. I do like the consistency. It's minimal except for this nice picture of glorious artwork there, some skulls. They shears? Yeah, shears and skulls. Whoa. What have they been shearing off? It's kind of like a slasher movie or something. So, like, yeah, the band doesn't do too much in the way of blasting. I mean, there's some limited moments of it, but it is more around that mid-pace and slower crawls and churning double bass, all that kind of good stuff. They do get some faster tremolo riffs in there, but it is more like played down the lower end of the fret. Lots of double bass, that kind of stuff. Occasional limited use of ambient keyboards, a little bit of atmosphere and some of the slower passages, but yeah, overall, this is just Tropos Doctrina is just 8 solid tracks, 40 minutes of continued goodness from this dark Swedish death metal band, Vanhelgd. If you like it dark and lumbering, look no further. If you've never checked these guys out, it's a great place to start. People just don't talk about these guys as much as some of the other Swedish bands, even some of the bands from Denmark. There's a lot of talk about your Undergangs and all of the bands that followed in their wake, but I don't hear people talk about Vanhelgd that much, which is really a desecration, get it, on the corpse of death metal. So please check out Vanhelgd. Start with Tropos Doctrina. It's great stuff. Next up, we have a very new and completely unknown new entity to Dark Descent Records. This is a mostly New Zealand-based band. This is Aberrator with Beckoning Tribulation. Great title, great band name, Aberrator. It's one of those. I love that style of naming. Immolation, incantation, Aberrator. Like that amount of syllables. It feels rare now, like we're running out of them. Like the last time that I had one of those that really, really got me was Ignivimus, Australian band Ignivimus. Like those short. Anyway, I'm just going off a tangent here. Aberrator, great title. 2-piece band, mostly from New Zealand, with session drums from Canada for this particular album. It actually pairs really well with the Vanhelgd we were just talking about. The difference, I suppose, is that this is a little bit faster, has more faster moments. Makes me think of sort of the Dead Congregation connections, Dark Descent's own Ensnared from a few years ago, but it's a bit more blackened in their sound, I guess, with Aberrator. But as for the rest, it shares that thick and heavy, darker side of death metal, which really is almost like the signature sound of Dark Descent. Like they don't do, you're not going to find party cannon on Dark Descent. That's not what they do. They do things like this. Lots of crawling doom moments, even some sort of My Dying Bride, like mournful guitar dual harmonies get put into this. I'd say the drums are a bit more dynamic and more chops and changes than you might get on that Vanhelgd. I'm not trying to do a direct comparison, but I mean, they came out basically the same time on the same label, and it's very similar kind of stuff. So look, may as well do some comparisons. At the moment, the band are keeping themselves kind of anonymous. Officially, this isn't actually out yet. Again, I got this from Total War Records, who occasionally does get stuff from Dark Descent quite early. So I don't think this is out until October 12 or something like that, which by the time this video goes up, it might be out. But as it stands now, I've had this for a few days. I've had it since last Friday. Yeah, it's not really out. There are no references on the Metal Archives yet. There are no links in Discogs. And that'll all change when the thing officially drops for sure. But right now, this is a anonymous beast with all you've got is your blurb that's on the Bandcamp, and that's your lot. But you do know the initials of the band members. On guitar and bass, we have GP. On drums from Canada, we have PF. And on the very snarled vocals, we have NH. Now, you can go and try and work out who those initials might be. Clearly, they've been around the traps for a while to get a brand new band and then immediately go into an album on Dark Descent. I'd say Matt knows who you are, and you've got a bit of history in the music that you've done before in other bands, and you can be relied upon. Like it's not just going to be you haven't done, there's no demo tape, is what I'm saying, right? It's just come out with full length. Um, and look, if I was going to be a bit of a guessing man, putting initials together and going, New Zealand, NH. Well, that matches one of the guys out of Heresiarch, out of New Zealand. So, maybe a bit of a connection to those guys. Who could say? But I'd say it's a decent assumption. But anyway, a very mature sounding release here from an unknown band. Everyone is just firing on all cylinders. Like, I love it when this happens, when out of nowhere an album drops, band you've never heard of, there's been no press, no promos, no anything, and then bam, it's the kind of thing you could throw in your top 10 of the year, and you're just floored. You're amazed. It puts you in that like happy spot of like bands can do this still. They can come out of nowhere and just floor you and go straight into your end of year contender list. It's exciting when this happens, and Aberrator have done that here with Beckoning Tribulation for me. They're doing something right. 7 tracks, 37 minutes. I have a feeling one or two things is going to happen. Either the band's going to blow up once this thing is officially out, or it might be one of those more quiet achievers that some people kind of sleep on. There's a few bands on Dark Descent's roster that I think people don't pay attention to too much. Vanhelgd is one of them. Nox Formulae is another one of those bands. I don't know. There's always a blood incantation that comes out, but then there's these other bands. There's plenty of great bands on Dark Descent, and not all of them seem to get the resonate with the masses as much as some of the other bands. I kind of hope that Aberrator do, because this thing is fantastic. Great artwork. I forget who it's by, but apparently it was a wood panel etching, and then it's been like photographed. I'll take it out so you can see it. It looks like a drawing to me, but I did read it that it was a wood panel etching or something. So anyway, great. However it was done, fantastic. Very old looking, sort of medieval, old papers here, like some ancient edition of a Bible or something. You guys have a bad day. Logo there. Another one of those cases where I would have liked to see the logo on the cover. Like, I know this is a thing. Bands are doing this quite a bit, and I'll be mentioning it again, I think, in this update, where the logo could have fit in, but they don't do it. They just show you the cover artwork. I do like a good band logo on my corner. They're all there. Throw up a band logo, I'd be happy. But it doesn't matter. It's a tiny, tiny quibble. It's great artwork. There we go. There's the back again. Logo. Names of the tracks. It is just great. It's just solid, mature, blackish, doomish, just death metal, very adult death metal, not kiddie death metal. It's just going to please long-standing fans of the genre. People around my age, and I'd say this is the kind of stuff you're just going to, yep, this is my death metal. As much as I like other bands that are younger bands, they do a bunch of demo tapes, a bunch of 20-year-olds and that kind of thing, and they do their thing. Sometimes, I don't know who's in this band, but I reckon it's going to be a bunch of 30, 40-year-olds. That's for sure. So anyway, Aberrator, Beckoning Tribulation. I'm going on a tangent, but these guys rule. So a short while ago, I showed the latest album by Canada's Adversarial, total onslaught of claustrophobic, blackened death metal. I happened upon this older release on Discogs, very cheap. 2012, didn't have this one, and happy to add it to the collection. This is Initiated in Impiety as Mysteries, and it's a split with another long-running Canadian death metal band, Antediluvian. Yeah, Antediluvian. We'll go with that. Yeah, I haven't really been across those guys before, but we'll get to that in a second. Each band bringing 3 songs to this disc, about 15 minutes worth or so each. Adversarial first, and this material would be their first that they'd put out since their 2010 debut full length, which, man, I remember when that thing dropped, everyone was just floored, both with the cacophony of the sound. I mean, we're knee deep in Portal territory in 2010, and then Adversarial come out and kind of make a more black and technical version of it. and it had this pinging snare that you either loved or you hated, and people were coming up with ways of adjusting your equalizer to to reduce the ping and all that kind of thing. But yeah, that was some pingy snare back then. It was overpowering. I quite liked it, but others didn't. But anyway, that pinging snare is not so much of a problem here on this split follow-up. If you don't know the band style, like I was saying, it's punishing. It is hugely dissonant. Black death metal attack. It's not for the faint-hearted whatsoever. I did mention Portal. The third track on here, well, I can't show you the track names because it's just got the title on the side there and the two sigils from the band there. But the third track, Spiraling Towards the Ultimate End, feels like it might actually be. It's just overwhelmingly dissonant in the sound on that. Look, the tracks on here are great continuation from the album that came before it. Is it as essential as the album? Perhaps not. I think these guys do really well at full lengths. But look, the tracks on here are still really great. The other band, Antediluvian, I think I got it right that time. As I said, I've heard of them for years, but I never bought anything from them. On the surface, they're similar sounding to Adversarial, but really the similarities are kind of surface level. They're more guttural, I'd say. Dare I say more experimental, more leaning into that Portal, just chaos. They are one step further into the void, I think, than Adversarial. The heaviness and the dissonance is absolutely pushing to extremities. The drums are hammered in a more war metal-like sound than sort of a precision Black Death attack like Adversarial would do. A little bit of a Titan Blood sound going in there as well. The structure of the songs can be challenging to follow on this. Again, Portal, you're either in with Portal or you're not. I think it's the case with Antediluvian. Bursts of like random otherworldly instrumentation coming in there. The second track, Dissolution Spires, is probably my favorite of the ones that they bring on. Has a guitar section in the middle that sounds like a supersonic jet passing over. It's really quite the thing. I'm like, man, that's a strange sounding, and it's just this soaring, mechanical, destructive sound. It worked really well, but I'm pretty sure that came from the guitar. So great stuff there. Overall, their three tracks are more bludgeoning with a meat hammer than Adversarial, who used more medical precision instruments to viscerate you. But in both cases, you're still being destroyed. So, there you go. That's a split here between Antediluvian. I really having trouble saying that, no. And Adversarial. There's the inside disc and the back of the booklet. Have a look there at the booklet. Nice artwork on that. Inverted cross. There's the Adversarial logo. Again, love their logo. They don't always use it. They've used it on the new album, which is great. Front center on the new album. Lots of nice artwork. Antediluvian's logo there, which is very chaotic. Great image for the band there because it is just so crazy. A nice little one to add to the collection. If you're an Adversarial fan, I would say this is not the one to start with. I reckon start with the latest album. That's an absolute slapper. Or maybe the first one or the second one, whatever. They're a good band for full length, for sure. As for where I go with Antediluvian, I'm not too sure. I'm still processing the tracks on here. Do I need more from this band? Probably. For the moment, I'm still digesting these ones, but initiated in impiety as mysteries. Subtle little split here from 2012. With a harmonized guitar lead fading in from the silence, leading into a blast beat fest, shrieks of vocals. Obscene are back with Agony and Wounds, that glorious cover artwork. First LP, the update here, Agony and Wounds by Obscene, US 4-piece. They wear some very, very obvious influences on their sleeve. I don't think they would be trying to deny that. Asphyx and those many cries of Martin Van Druren are blatant, though the twists in the vocals lean towards Thomas Lindbergh from At the Gates, particularly some of the later stuff, like the post-Reformation sound from his voice. I reckon there's a lot of that in here. but also a lot of John Tardy's just indecipherable shouting, Obscene across all that. Musically, these guys range anywhere from blast beats through to crawling death doom, spending a lot of time in that upper to mid pace. Like it's generally got a bit of pep behind it. Good just sort of driving death metal, that kind of thing. Lots of one-two punch drums with just frenetic chugging riffs behind it. They just give you death metal in spades. I mean, the band's called Obscene, so you just are getting an obscene amount of death metal, just rooted in that obituary and asphyx sound for the most part. Some thrashy parts make me think of sort of the Crown. Got a bunch of the Crown in there when they got sort of fast. Occasional guitar harmonies, giving a bit of a nod to sort of Sweden, I'd say, in general, and just surrounded by quotes from obscure movies, not to the level of like Mortician, but there's a bunch of sort of quotes and things in here that I'm not quite sure what they're from. I have to dig into that. But yeah, just add to a nice little overall album production, having those little pieces thrown in there. And glorious, glorious dive bombs. I love me some dive bombs, you know that. It's just a good headbanging album. Nothing more needed, just good riffs, foot tapping. Flipping on the other side here. Side A closer, written in blood and covered in flies. What a title for a song. That's a particularly strong track, pulling at a few more emotions than the prior tracks before it. A ripping solo towards the end. It's the kind of album where you're listening to it and you don't realize there's solos, and then bam, one hits you and like, oh shit, there's solos in this thing. It just sort of come out of nowhere. You're not really expecting it because I don't think it's always happening. Nice slower sort of pitter patter double bass drums there as the song closes. We flip over, we go to side B with the Reaper's Blessing, absolutely cracking. It crushes like a steamroller at the start before swiftly turning into a cruise missile and just blowing up everything that it hits on the way down. That's a destructive sounding song. It just causes all this damage, and then there's a mighty sort of sweep picking solo thrown in there. Sounds great. Distorted, rumbling bass guitar throughout most of this album, just grinding you down. Real grinding sound, like not your grindcore grind, but your as Bolt Thrower used to call themselves grindcore, even though they weren't. That kind of just grindy, meaty, just churning death metal. You just love it. I love death metal, and Obscene's one of those bands that makes you go, yep. The reason I listen to this genre, it's for bands like Obscene. It's great. The last track on here, Agony and Wounds, the title track, well into the crushing death doom sound with that one. Even has sort of some like light piano in there to try and just make it the more, not funeral, but it has that real dirgy sound. Throw the piano in there, and it's a bit more of an emotional lean. Just a very strong meat and potatoes death metal album. And Obscene are a little bit like Necrot in a way that, like, I don't know, they release an album, people talk about it for a bit, and then they just sort of go away for a while. I don't know why that's the case. Seems to be with Necrot as well. Like, Necrot did a great album a few months ago, but I don't hear people talking about it as much anymore. I'm spinning it all the time still. And that's going to be the case with Obscene. Look at these guys. For older chaps there, sunglasses, big sunglasses, cool band, great artwork. Let's say here who did the artwork. Brad Moore. So there you go, some great Brad Moore artwork. Awesome stuff there. Great gatefold. And what record did I get? It might have been coloured. Yes, it was. Matches the cover nicely. Nice gold. So yeah, I do like it when the colour of the LP suits the cover nicely, and it does so with Obscene, Agony and Wounds. It's just, as I said, meat and potatoes death metal. Sometimes that's all you want. This next release has probably been talked about ad nauseum by now, in a complete contrast to bands like Obscene, where that has been out for a couple of months and I don't hear people talking about it. This one, I hear everyone talking about, but for a very good reason, because, man, it's about time these guys got their level up, and I've been happy to be following these guys since the start, and it's just now easier to get their material. I'm talking about the incredibly fun Fulci with Duck Face Killings. Artwork, that Wes Ben Scotter artwork, so good. We'll get into that. I was a huge fan of Fulci's Tropical Sun album from 2019, but it always feels like you've got like a duel with that album because everyone that's been picking this up is like, where the hell can I get the last one? Good luck to you, because all of their previous work has been on a small, I think, Italian label, and it's very tough to get their stuff. I've never found distributors for it. I've always had to go to the source, and the shipping not great. But you know, it doesn't matter so much now. We're on $20 spin. The band they've had their exposure increased, and this stuff is, you can get this stuff from a petrol station now almost. So good on them. What do you get with these guys? I mean, as I was saying, Tropical Sun was a great entry into brutal death metal canon. Brutal, like that subgenre, brutal death metal. That itself can have about 6 different meanings, but I don't usually follow most of that kind of stuff, because usually you go, oh, brutal death metal, that's like Russian brie core or something. That's not so much where Fulci are going. They are just sort of doing your death metal, but doing those palm muted chugs from the old suffocation days of brutal death metal, and they're throwing a bit of mortician in there for the hell of it. It's sort of what they did on that album was very pummeling. I've got to say one-dimensional, but it's not in a bad way. Drum machine-based death metal, right? Just slogged along. But the songs were so hooky and just so fun. And of course the theme, I mean, the band's name is Fulci. You watch the other half of this channel, I'm all about the Italian horror films. So it was just like, you were hooking me with cheese, and then you just improved the cheese. And you swapped out the cheddar and you put in some brie and some delicious camembert, and then you brought in some like gorgonzola to add in the scent, and like it's just all become very cheesy. What the hell am I talking about? I don't know why I'm talking about cheese. Anyway, this follow up here, well, if I follow the trajectory, in 2021, after that one, they did Exhumed Information, which I've never been able to get a copy of. See difficulties of label. That one was a bit. I'm not completely unhappy that I've not been able to pick it up, because that one apparently is a little bit of a mixed bag. The first half is your Fulci death metal. The second half is a bit of a John Carpenter kind of instrumental on the side B. I know Melanie at Melanie Loves Death Metal was not impressed with that album, and I think that sort of went into the back of my head, and I never ended up picking it up. One day I might be able to, but again, they release 100 copies in some color on that label, and I don't know how to get it half the time. Doesn't matter. Here we are, 2024, Duck Face Killings, and this Italian band, as I said, have been elevated to the $20 spin roster. Thank God for that. It makes it super easy to get, and they have a real drummer now. Not that I immediately told. I put the thing on, I'm like, yep, drum machine death metal. That's exactly what they've done before, but they're on a bigger label. It's a real drummer now, supposedly. He's obviously got a triggered kit and using the samples from the drum machine, but hey, it's a real drummer, and why not? That means they can play live better, so good. I'm happy that they have a real drummer. It's 11 tracks of brutal mid-pace, palm-muted death metal with 3 short sort of cinematic style instrumentals in there that, if you the kind of stuff that you get from a Fulci movie, your Fabio Frizzi stuff, your synthwave stuff, that's kind of where they go with the instrumentals, but then they put that death metal guitar on the top. Think back to the Sulphur Eon's first album, and they had a cover at the end of a Fabio Frizzi track, and that was very similar. That's kind of what Fulci do a little bit here in their instrumentals. And the outro instrumental track, that one cracks like 3 minutes itself. So, yeah, quite well rounded. But yeah, the 11 tracks on here, they barely crack 3 minutes themselves. They're like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. They just come up with a couple of riffs, they palm mute the Christ out of it, and they hit you in the face and move on to the next track. It's great. It's a lot of fun. They know exactly what they're doing. They switch from sort of your bolt thrower groove through to, I heard like Skinless, like first couple of albums, sort of gore metal stuff. They have the appearance of Mortician. You go, oh, drum machine, gory death metal. They just don't have that rabid speed. It's not that kind of blast fest drum machine death metal. But to use the quote from the start of the album, which was ripped from Fulci's New York Ripper, the whole thing is about New York Ripper. Great sleazy piece of Italian cinema. This album, it starts with a line, "This is good, efficient butchery." And that is exactly what you get with this album. It is just good, efficient butchery. Brutal death metal, 11 tracks of it, a few instrumentals, smacks you around a bit, lets you go home. It's over and done with in about 30 minutes or so. Yep, it's exactly what you want. The Maniac Unleashed, that one has a bit more beat down stuff happening in the middle in there, and then there's a few little bits of bree bree vocals just for a bit of a laugh. Not enough to make you annoyed, but just for a bit of a laugh. They obviously a bit of humor in these guys. I mean, the name of the band and everything about them. Of course, it's going to be a little bit humorous, a bit tongue in cheek. The next track though threw me off completely. I know it threw Melanie off as well. The track is called Knife, and it has about 4 or 5, maybe 6 bars of rapping, apparently from a guy called Lord Goat. Only lasts about maybe 45 seconds, maybe. Honestly, the more I listen to that track, the more it fits. Like it's got the death metal riffs underneath it. They're just more loose single riffs, and the beat is more simplified. And he's doing this. It's just horrorcore stuff. Like he's just describing scenes from the movie, and it's nasty stuff. But it's just not the death metal vocals. It's fine. It like the more I listen to it, I'm not going, oh, this is a rap album or anything like that. Because I'm not a fan of rap music or anything like that. But in the context of this album and that one song, it's fine. Did the job. So it's not a bad way to break it up, honestly. So yeah, good on them for giving a little bit of a try to something there. But then you get plenty of duck squealing samples because it's Fulci and it's New York Ripper. So all of the ducks, all the samples from New York Ripper with the duck squeals is great. It overall is just delivers on the mission statement, really, of being a bunch of short, fast bursts of death metal goodness that sounds like a drum machine, but apparently isn't anymore. And then vocals that sound like Nathan Explosion. He really does. Like it's a little bit discernible, but it's right down guttural. I was picturing like the cartoon drawings the whole time of Nathan Explosion while listening to these guys. I don't know. It even seems more obvious that way on this album than it has in the past. It's great though, and then that instrumental at the end, which is Il Miel del Diavolo, which I did not look up if actually was a Freezy or otherwise cinema track, but if it's not, they've certainly made it sound like one. It could be one, I don't know, but it's got the metal guitars, and then it has like I think it's saxophone in it to sort of wail it out at the end. Don't be too scared, Marty. It's not saxophone metal. It's just there's one track at the end that they throw in some horns. It gets kind of John Zorn. It gets crazy, blown out kind of stuff. Oh, it works well. Like all these little extra bits they throw on the album are just little extra bits, a little bit of pink Himalayan salt on your steak. It's what's going on here. It's not like, oh, they've got saxophones and rapping. Bah! I'm not getting that whatsoever. It's just a few little interesting things to keep you on your toes. I have probably played this. So, as I said at the start, people have talked about this ad nauseum. I've had it for about 4 weeks, and I just haven't had a death metal update enough to do an update. So I've been playing it for a month, and I've been playing it. I think I've had probably about a dozen spins so far of the record. I've had the digital promo for about 2 months. I've been playing it on my phone probably about another dozen times. So yeah, good 20, 25 listens I've had of this thing. I'm not getting sick of it. And for that reason alone, for being such a fun, memorable, catchy, consistently returnable album, it's featuring high in my top 10 of the year. I don't care how silly it is. It is. And well done on the guys on getting there because it's just a fun album. Fulci, Duckface Killings. If you like your death metal a bit fun and horror themed, check it out. The next 3 LPs I'm going to show are all splits with other bands. The first 2 feature the same band on 2 splits. And the first one we're going to take a look at here is the 2021 split between Cryptic Brood from Germany and Night Hag out of the US. Great monochrome artwork on this one. I don't actually know who did it. It's fantastic, though. I should have looked that up, but I didn't. Anyway, great scribbly kind of stuff. This is we'll keep it on the Night Hag side for the moment. Both Death Doom kind of bands, but different ways of playing Death Doom. Obviously, Night Hag are very horror themed. I mean, look at the logo. The inverted cross and your gory eyeball. Then the H is made out of like a spine, and this is just a bunch of the G's a bunch of just organ meat, bleh, kind of stuff going on. They have a very ugly sound to them, kind of thinking like Hooded Menace in that kind of Death Doom, with autopsy zombies thrown into it. Yeah, like I said, I've got two splits from these guys to talk about today, that I got quite cheap. I'll talk about that. I got it from Repressed Records shop in the city, that I've been to a few times, and I dragged Jeff from Mendicant Media there once. And I'm not sure if it was that time or maybe afterwards, but he has also since picked up from that record store these two splits. And they've been there for ages. I don't know if Repress got them really cheap because they've been out for a while. These are not new. They had new copies. They had multiples of them. They were very, very cheap. So he picked them up. I picked them up. Yeah, the Night Hag side here, sort of as described, mostly murky, horrible Mark G with a C kind of death metal. Sporadic blasts being thrown in there for good measure. Mostly down-tuned, somewhat sloppy, nasty death doom. Very crushing moments in there, particularly the third and final track that goes for 11 minutes on this. It's just solid, horrible death doom, I think. Doesn't reinvent anything, these guys from Night Hag, but it does the job really well. On the other side, we have Cryptic Brood, again, continuing that great artwork. These guys out of Germany, a bit more of a looser, organic sounding kind of death doom. It opens in sort of fits and starts, like it's like it just gets going and then the car stalls, and then they get going again and the car stalls again. Kind of works actually. It's just got an interesting way to kick the album off. A lot of like ghost hits on the snare as well, which I wasn't really expecting. Starts to get faster and faster until we get the full power of D beat, and then you're into like your autopsy side of Death Doom. I always thought these guys sit nicely with Norway's Obliteration. I've got the full length from these guys, from Cryptic Brood. I've had it for many years now. Been out since, I don't know, 2019, 2020, something like that. I've had it for a while. Yeah, I've always enjoyed that. I always return to that one and always had that Obliteration sound to me. The very stripped back, organic, kind of raw sounding, Norwegian sounding, but they're German. Yeah, very dry. I guess dry is a good word for how they do this. It feels like it's played live. It's a very twangy approach to death metal. Lots of ride hits on the cymbal, just sort of ching, that kind of thing. Very guttural vocals, incredibly guttural. The bass guitar sounds like fence wire. Just, yeah, it really like heavy gauge fence wire, just dun, that kind of stuff. Really, really tasty. And there's a good swagger to Cryptic Brood that I think might appeal to fans of the more stoner style of Doom. So, I'm not going to go out here and say it's a stoner Doom band, but if you like to straddle across all kinds of types of Doom, you'll find moments in here that are like, oh, really go a bonger out now. Just a few times I started to get that in there. But then it coin flips into that autopsy D beat. So, it's not enough that's going to get your desert rock fans on board. No, it's still pure death metal. Just has these moments. But yeah, I mean, this is a solid split. Night Hag give a few good tracks on here. Cryptic Brood, I think, for me, would be the winning half. Both are good, but I think Cryptic Brood are the winners on this one. We get Black LP. And there's the hype stickers on the front, Cryptic Brood and Night Hag. This came out on Rotted Life. There is the Cryptic Brood side, 4 tracks. And the Night Hag side, 3 tracks. Like they're on the blasphemy couch there. That's amazing. Oop. So yeah, good stuff here. Cryptic Brood out of Germany and Night Hag out of the US. Not the last time you're going to hear about on this update. So fast forwarding 2 years to 2023, and the next split we have here is also Night Hag, but this time with Italy's Burial. We'll start with the Night Hag side again. They've really improved their chops in the 2 years here. There's an album in 2022 which I've not heard. It's a CD and tape only release. There's no LP of that one. Phantasmal Scourge came out in 2022. Haven't heard it, but on this, the split that came out the year later, much heavier sound from Night Hag, much tighter sound. The bass guitar crunch on this is dominating. Honestly, both sides are ridiculously heavy, but the Night Hag side, Jesus, they've obviously like taken some internal feedback and gone back and they've refined their sound, and then bang, this is the latest thing they've put out as well. The multi-layered vocals at the end of the first track are absolutely putrid. The middle section of the second track is a barely moving riff. We are really getting slow. Combining with these slow pounding drums, it could bring down buildings with its heaviness. So heavy sounding. The third track has dedicated bass guitar portions in it. I thought my speakers were going to vibrate off the shelf. Sonically, this is one of the most heavy things I've heard in some time. Much improved over their split side with Cryptic Brood. Not to say that was bad, but they've just improved. So well done, Nighthag. Really up the ante on this one. The other half of this split goes to Burial from Italy. We'll flip over the other side here. There's Nighthag and there is Burial. Burial looking very much that they've just dug themselves out of the ground. Nighthag there peeking between the gates of the mortuary. But they're both just down there digging their way out of the graveyards. So yeah, Italy's Burial here. They bring 2 lengthy tracks to this split. I'm very familiar with these guys. In 2021, they released a full length. I got it when that came out. It's an excellent album, very Cthulhu worshipping. And there's a compilation of their various demos I picked up before that, like 3 or 4 demos they did, quite a few. And there's a nice comp. They've put some all together. It's really worth getting. But that album, damn, that thing is a crusher. These guys definitely more traditional death metal approach. It's still Death Doom, but it's definitely more into that darker death metal sound, infused with those horrors of H.P. Lovecraft. 4-piece, bringing 2 new tracks, one 9 minutes, one 8. So you're in for the ride on these ones. Lengthy journeys of swirling, pummeling, grinding HM2 riffs, but not played in an obvious Swedish death metal style. It's enough that I got through the first track and went, I think that's HM2. It wasn't quite obvious to me at the start of it. It started to dawn on me as we're going through. I'm like, yeah, I think that's what they're doing with this thing. And it's great. Mixing that with this like dissonant cosmic dread. It's so good. The bottom end complementing the Nighthag side very well. Really could be the heaviest release of 2023, sonically at least anyway. My speakers agree with that statement. So well done to both guys for nearly destroying my stereo. That's props to you. It is a dominatingly heavy split album here, and a great cover artwork on this one too. Really like that one. Good stuff. Utterances from Below being the title of this thing. If I hadn't mentioned it, we will take a look inside. Again, Rotted Life, and again very cheap. Don't know why. Probably because it's a split. I don't know. Artwork by Samuel Scalise, LP layout by Claw//8. I don't know who they are, but this is a nice glossy inner. Don't get glossy inners like this. It's great. Burial side, yep. Nighthag side with the lyrics, and it's just a black LP. Nothing too exciting. Great stuff. The Nighthag side here is like chalk and cheese. I mean, the stuff I said before on the Cryptic Brood one is great, but this stuff is fantastic. Who wins on this one, Burial or Nighthag? I'm actually going to have to call a draw because they are both really well done on this. Sonically, like I said, just not boat anchor heavy. This is like bone saw while in a plane that's crashing. I don't know. This is just damn heavy. It's nasty. It's nasty stuff. Nighthag, Burial. Utterances from Below, highly recommended. If you don't know either of the bands, great place to start. Back in 2022, there was a new band to me, Jade from Catalonia in Spain. They completely floored me with their debut full-length, The Pacification of Death. I think it was either my first or second review over at Heavy Metallurgy, and I gushed over that thing in how great it was. And it made number 5 spot in my favorites list of the year. If I was revisiting that favorites list of 2022, might even raise higher. When I went back and looked at it and went, the things that I had in there that were 4 through 1, I'm like, ooh, probably could. raise it up to maybe at least a 3. So, it's really stood the test of time for me, that one, the Pacification of Death. What we have here is a fantastic split release. Great artwork on this too, between Jade and Sanctuarium, another band I've talked about. Jade have a very unique, uncompromising, immensely atmospheric approach to death metal, mixing the darkness found in Ruins of Beverast, the tight blackened fury of Sulphur Aeon, and that Swiss progression and more progressive kind of death metal sound from Bolzer, particularly in the vocal department. And in 2023, I was met with another Death Doom band, Sanctuarium, also from the same Spanish region, with their debut full-length Into the Mephitic Abyss. Absolutely stonking release, that one. It was a 2-piece that released 4 tracks of dirgy Death Doom, bordering on the funeral that would appeal to fans of autopsy and disembowelment alike. But here in 2024, we have a split between both bands, which just on that surface, I mean, those 2 bands together, this is going to, again, destroy my speakers. I'm going to need new speakers. Entitled The Sempiternal Wound, it's a split that makes complete sense, both geographically, because they're both from that Catalonia, Spain area, but also both bands for a time did share a member or 2. So the Jade side first does continue the great work from the Pacification of Death, slower to mid-paced with heavy double bass drum usage, very clean, very crisp production. Those Bolzer-like wails in the background, just supporting the upfront gutturals. I love that mix that they do. It's got the deep gutturals as it churns away. Then in the background, he sort of just comes out and does the chanting yowls that you've been hearing, like you did on Bolzer back in the days of Hero, those kinds of things. Once again, like I said on the album, it's the lead guitars. They completely drain me of all emotion when listening to them. Very My Dying Bride way of crafting those leads. They come so much from the soul. It is deep sounding. I don't know how he does those guitars, but the leads on this thing, they just get me. And they got me on the album. They get me on this. 3 songs on here by Jade. It's a fantastic journey through them. The second track, though, Cascade. Great layout here. I mean, there's the Jade side, the Sanctuarium side. We have Third Creation, and the second track here on side A is Cascade. That's the one that hooked me the most. Just, it is so good. So much just constant double kick barrage and those drawn out lead riffs over the top of the rhythm riffs. So good. The last track on it, though, Essential Formulas for Life Transition. That's the speediest one. Almost constant speed on that. Closest the band has come to blasting that I've heard. It's not really. It's sort of like, it's just fast snare. Really, it's, if you're a funeral doom band, which they're not. If you're a funeral doom band and someone said you're blasting, then that's kind of the speed you get into. It still has those leads that kind of kill me in a nice way. But it's relentless, absolutely relentless track, crushing close with these tom rolls and then a single cymbal hit just goes ching, fades out. Such a good side from Jade. At least, even just speaking about just these 3 tracks, it's as essential as the full length. The Sanctuarium side comes in as an absolute crawl on recomposition of carbonized corpses. There it is down there. Such a carcass title. Immediately bringing in those disembowelment vibes. Minimal guitar, very minimal guitar, drawn out chord per bar, just like the dun, dun, like just drawn out. Even more minimal sounding drums with the single China hits, the ting, ting, that kind of thing. For the first 3 minutes or so, it just dragging you through as it just tries to get going. Then it switches immediately into an ugly and sludgy coffins kind of autopsy churning death doom for a few more bars. Then there's this blech, which I loved. I wasn't expecting to get a blech in this kind of album, but I got one. So that was great. Separates us into a passage of more dynamic, kind of offbeat, disjointed guitar progressions, flowing then into like a more caveman, meat pounding death metal. Dun, 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 bring me steak. It's so heavy. I love how Sanctuarium have these sort of switch ups. Just it's all Death Doom, but they have enough just to, you know, turning the dial one way you get a bit funeral, turning it the other way you get a little bit more faster D beat. Just keeps you invested. And then throwing those little offbeat bits in there as well, just to keep you on your toes. Like they know what they're doing. It's a really good little project, and I think the work on here is as good as the full length. And Sanctuarium is the brainchild of prolific musician Mark Rodriguez, who helms many good death metal bands like Exhumation, Troll Cave, who have an EP coming out on MSUO soon, as well as black metal bands like Calderum and Stygian Storm. He's one of those guys. He's in many bands. He's helped with vocals in Sanctuarium by Carlos, who is also from Troll Cave. Haven't heard Troll Cave yet. I'm not too sure if that EP coming out is the first thing, or if that's or what the go is with that. But I'm looking forward to that EP. Supposedly in the more funeral doom sound. If he's doing the vocals, if Carlos is doing the vocals like he's doing here, they're just these deep, guttural, booming, echoey kind of things, like in Coffination, that kind of style. Very reverb, very much suiting the music perfectly. The second track, Melodorus Osteophagy in Acrimony, such a carcass title. Real stomping, chugging riff on that one. For the whole thing, like, would get some great windmills on stage when played live. Certainly gets my head nodding in improvement. I'm listening to it going, I was nodding away to it, writing the notes for this, going, I think I'm nodding. Yeah, I am. I'm nodding away as this thing is playing. So that track was the most sort of death metal, just quote unquote death metal track. Very different, I guess, to that mix of funeral doom and D beat, and just going straight down the middle of just death metal, churning and chugging for most of its runtime. Like I said, these are long tracks on here, like a 10 and a 9 or something like that. So that funeral doom sound is largely removed from this second track, and they just favor a more pummeling approach. Again, just adding another feather into Sanctuarium's just overall way of doing death metal. They just play all kinds of different styles to it. Never going to get into the grind, I don't think, but yeah, they're just all over. They keep you nice and interested. And this is a great release with great artwork out on Pulverized Records. They did not put their logo on the back, actually. Oh, there it is. Down the bottom, tiny little logo. Pulverized Records. I got this directly from Jade, the band. Had it on their Bandcamp. Came in a week, so that was really fast. Just lost a hype sticker, so I had the hype sticker there on the front with Jade's logo and Sanctuarium's logo imposed over the top of it. So yeah, nice little thing there. And you get the lyrics, nice strong card, Sanctuarium, and the Jade side. Very nice. And the LP, another one that matches very nicely. It's black, because I like my black. So there you go. I think there was a color as well. But there you go. Jade, Sanctuarium. That looks like one of the Ecclese covers, doesn't it? I think the first one does look a bit that way. Really, really cool. Suits it. It's just this smoky, old beast coming out of the depths. There's like all the pile of corpses, and we're in the pit. Like, this is coming out of the pit, and I think that's the sound that these guys have got on the Sempiternal Wound. Great little split here from two great bands out of Spain, Jade and Sanctuarium. Check them out. It occurs to me that most of the death metal in this update has been of the slower variety, and I'm not about to change that with the final release I'm showing today, the debut full-length release here from an excellent little band, Phenocryst, Crematory Pyre. Back in 2021, this band from Portugal released a very excellent EP called Explosions. It had 5 tracks of very quality death doom metal. Pretty sure I showed it on the channel. I bought that when it came out on Blood Harvest. Really, really strong EP. All was quiet in that camp. I actually thought that might have been one of those bands that did an EP and they kind of just dissolved. Like, you kind of like a COVID band kind of thing did a thing and then vanished away. I wasn't too sure. But then, no. August this year, full length appeared in my inbox. I'm like, oh shit, Phenocryst are back. Fantastic. They've swapped out their drummer, but they dropped this full length back in August of Crematory Pyre. Been listening to the promo for some time, and then I managed to get the LP in physical format. As you can see, 40 minutes and 8 tracks of heavy as balls death metal. In general, the band have sped up a little over the EP, but they're by no means some kind of death grind band. Slower to mid-paced death metal heaviness is what you get. Dark, low-end tremolo riffs, rumbling bass, mid-range kind of guttural vocals there, more just so your standard growls, I guess. A truly excellent production. Reminds me of that last Bolt Thrower album that they put out. Very sharp, and they know exactly how to get everything they need out of a death metal production sound without it turning into some overproduced clicky nonsense, right? Does not sound at all like a Pro Tools band. It just sounds very clean. There may very well be a Pro Tools band, I wouldn't know, but it doesn't sound that. It sounds very not organic, but it sounds exactly what you want, I think. It's very professional sounding. We'll go with that. Musically, it's like a sharper take on maybe Mortiferum. Mortiferum keep it all dark and gurgly and analog, but I'd say these guys are the more refined kind of way of doing that similar style of death metal. They do pull out the stops every so often. The middle of the second track, Astonishing Devastation. I laughed when I read that. I'm like, it's not just a devastation, it's an astonishing devastation. It kind of summarizes the album, honestly. There's the guys there. Being death metal in a forest, you got a Diocletian shirt, you got an Autopsy shirt, all the goodness on display there. Look, the whole thing just lives up to its name, I think. There's a rabid blasting passage in that track to really echo your devastation. But for the most part, slower, chunkier death doom. And yeah, they're great at what they do. I mean, the last track has got Swamp in its title. Now let's talk about this amazing cover artwork. James Campbell at Spectral Vision Art did this one. I think it's amazing. Like, quite gorgeous. It's a volcano exploding. You've got the molten lava coming down, and these are all skulls down in here. So this is clearly like the fires of hell, the crematory pyre, as you were. And I also just love Phenocryst's logo, designed by Anvil Cult, Kvult, KVELT. It's a great logo. I've always liked it. Just a scribbly one, but it just fits in so nicely with their music and with this cover. And look, here's me again saying album cover, logo top right. I just like it. I mean, the Jade cover was great, and even they know it because they put the hype sticker in the top right with the logo. What can you do? This is a great overall package here. Let's take a look inside. We get the lyrics. There you go. Some in English. This track's all in Portuguese. And there's the band credits and such. Blood Harvest logo. And we get a very standard black LP. But the... there's something else floating around in here. What is it? Oh, yes, the Bandcamp thingy. I already used it, so there's no point showing you that one. This is a great little album. Phenocryst with Crematory Pyre. If you like death metal, if you like death doom metal, if you like it a bit more polished, but you still want it crushing and heavy, check out Crematory Pyre. We have it for this death metal update. 3 CDs, 6 LPs. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're going to check some of these things out. I've had a few comments recently about how these updates are costing you money. Well, that's my job done then, isn't it? Because I'm just here to try and share some metal goodness with more people, and hope that people like the kinds of things that I like. I only show things I like. If I don't like it, I didn't buy it. If I didn't buy it, I don't like it. It's as simple as that. So if you see it on here, kind of means I like it. If you did like this video, make sure you like this video, and then check out this guy, and check out this guy. And I'll see you next time.